I'm staring at my lawn. Not in admiration, mind you. More like a biologist observing a particularly stubborn fungus. Because on my lawn, kneeling with an intensity usually reserved for bomb disposal experts, is Karen von Rulstein, HOA president. Bane of my existence. She's not praying for rain or hunting for four-leaf clovers. Oh no, Karen von Rulstein is currently employing what appears to be a jeweler's loupe and a miniature silver ruler to measure a single blade of my fescue blend. Yep, I mutter, taking a sip of my lukewarm coffee. The chipped "World's Okayest Pilot" mug feels particularly ironic this morning. That's Karen. She moved in 3 years ago, and Peace packed its bags and moved out the same day. My grass is probably a millimeter over regulation. Again. I bought this place, this little slice of American suburbia, 5 years back. It seemed perfect. A decent-sized house, a big yard, and a workshop that didn't look like it would collapse if you sneezed too hard. Perfect for me and Pops. Pops? He's my grandpa, a retired Air Force mechanic who can coax life out of any engine and tell stories that'll make your hair curl. He taught me everything valuable. How to change a tire, how to tell a good bourbon from a bad one, and most importantly, how to not take guff from clipboard-wielding tyrants. The workshop, that's my sanctuary. It's where my baby, a vintage Stowell, short takeoff and landing aircraft, is currently enjoying a very expensive, very time-consuming facelift. She's a 1950s de Havilland Beaver, a rugged beauty designed to get in and out of places most planes wouldn't look at twice. Karen calls it the derelict aircraft nuisance. I call it freedom, thy name is Beaver. Or sometimes just patience, because that's what you need in spades to live on Willow Creek Lane. And also because that's what it took to find every single original part for her. Karen clears her throat, a sound like gravel in a food processor. She rises, brushing off her impeccable beige slacks without actually touching the offending grass. "Mr. Henderson," she begins. Her voice is crisp as a freshly printed violation notice. She doesn't look at me, but at some point beyond my shoulder, presumably addressing the Grand Council of Acceptable Lawn Heights. Your fescue blend is aggressively non-compliant. Section 4, subsection B, paragraph 3 clearly states, and I quote, "Lawn foliage shall not exceed an aesthetically congruous 3 inches. She taps her clipboard. This blade here, she gestures with the tiny ruler, is a brazen 3 1/8 inches. Brazen. I take another sip of coffee. Karen, it's grass. It grows. Sometimes it gets enthusiastic, especially after that rain last week. Enthusiasm, she says, her nostrils flaring slightly, is not a recognized exemption within the Willow Creek HOA bylaws. I'll expect rectification by 0800 hours tomorrow. A notice will be in your historically incongruent mailbox forthwith. My mailbox. Oh, we'll get to the mailbox. Right, I say, forthwith, got it? She gives a curt nod, pivots on her sensible orthopedic shoe, and marches off, presumably to terrorize the rhododendrons next door. I sigh, looking at my enthusiastic lawn. This is my life. Welcome to it, 1 millimeter at a time. Speaking of the mailbox, that was last week's epic saga. Not the grass, which was probably having a rebellious growth spurt then too. Not the slightly ajar garage door, behind which I was engaged in the heinous act of working on patience. No, the flashpoint, the hill Karen chose to metaphorically die on, was the mailbox. Its color, to be precise. I'd painted it, a rather fetching shade of patriot blue. I thought it looked sharp, understated, yet dignified. Karen, however, saw it as a personal affront. "It's an affront, Alex," she'd shrieked, appearing as if summoned by the very fumes of the drying paint. She was clutching a color swatch book so thick it could have stopped a bullet. An absolute affront to the aesthetic integrity we strive for. Patriot Blue is not and has never been on the approved list of mailbox hues for Zone C, Subsector Gamma. It's a mailbox, Karen, I'd replied, trying to keep the weariness out of my voice. I was failing. It holds mail, which, by the way, includes your incessant violation notices, often multiple per day. You'd think you'd want it to be easily identifiable for the mailman. The bylaws, she'd trilled, her eyes gleaming with the fervor of a true believer. Specify earthy ochre, forest umber, or for the more adventurous homeowner, subtle sage. Your Patriot Blue is historically incongruent with the neighborhood's predominantly autumnal palette. I'm pretty sure autumnal palettes aren't a year-round requirement, but I didn't say that. I was too busy wondering if subtle sage was secretly HOA code for soul-crushingly bland. Chuck, one of the contractors who's been helping me with some of the heavy lifting on patience, heard me muttering about this particular battle yesterday. He's a big guy, ex-Navy with a handlebar mustache that Karen once tried to cite for being excessively flamboyant. "Mailbox, huh?" he said, wiping grease from his hands. "She's on a tear. Yesterday she told Barry here his panel truck was too aggressively commercial for a residential street. Mind you, Barry was delivering her new, custom-ordered, organic, gluten-free, sustainably sourced, artisan-crafted patio furniture at the time. Barry, a wiry man who seemed to run on coffee and sheer exasperation, nodded grimly. Swear to God, Alex, she timed my idling. Stood there with a stopwatch. Said I exceeded the ambient serenity quota for a Tuesday morning. A Tuesday? Who has an ambient serenity quota on a Tuesday? Karen von Rulstein, apparently, I'd said. She probably has quotas for the number of times birds are allowed to chirp before 9 a.m. Chuck snorted. Wouldn't surprise me. She told me my laugh was decibel inappropriate. So, you see, it's not just me. Karen is an equal opportunity tormentor. She spreads her unique brand of misery with commendable impartiality. The Patriot Blue mailbox, by the way, is still Patriot Blue. Some hills are worth defending, even if they're only mailbox-sized. I did, however, receive a separate violation for the unapproved protective newspaper receptacle, a plastic bag, attached to its side during a brief drizzle. You can't win. You can only delay the inevitable cascade of paperwork. Right now I'm back in the workshop with Chuck and Barry. The large double doors are open to the warm May air, or at least they were until a shadow fell across the threshold. We're trying to ignore it. Chuck's tightening a hydraulic line on Patience's landing gear, Barry's meticulously cleaning a spark plug, and I'm trying to coax a new transponder into acknowledging its existence. Almost there, boys, I say, louder than necessary. Just need to get this transponder talking to the 21st century. Then she'll be ready for her official, post-restoration, FAA-approved shakedown cruise. Chuck grunts, giving the fitting a final twist. She's a beaut, Alex. Real shame Queen Karen over there thinks it's a pile of scrap ready for the junkyard. He nods his head almost imperceptibly towards the doorway. I glance over. Karen is standing just outside, clipboard at the ready, her expression one of profound disapproval. She looks like she's just smelled something foul and suspects it might be freedom. Her loss, I say, turning back to the transponder. This thing can land on a dime, get in and out of places you wouldn't take a mountain goat. It's my emergency escape hatch from her. I wink at Chuck. He grins. Suddenly there's a yelp and a metallic clang from the doorway. Karen has apparently tripped over a large, bright red, clearly marked toolkit that was a good 5 feet inside the workshop. She's sprawled rather ungracefully, her clipboard skittering across the concrete floor. "This is a hazardous environment," she exclaims, scrambling to her feet, dignity slightly askew. "I'm documenting this. There are potential pedestrian thoroughfares here. Children play in this industrial zone you've created. The only children who ever venture near my workshop are the Peterson twins from down the street. And they only come because Pops gives them candy and tells them stories about gremlins in airplane engines. You all right there, Karen? I ask, my voice dripping with false concern. I don't move to help her. Neither do Chuck or Barry. We know better. Any physical contact could be construed as an unwarranted physical engagement, as per Bylaw 12, Section F. That was quite a tumble. Maybe watch your step around the clearly visible, brightly colored, and entirely stationary tools next time. She glares at me, rights her glasses, and snatches up her clipboard. This entire operation, she waves a hand vaguely at Patience, is an unacceptable deviation from residential norms. I'll be filing a comprehensive report with the county zoning board and the FAA, and possibly Homeland Security. That propeller looks suspiciously weaponized. Barry snorts. Chuck coughs to cover a laugh. The propeller is, in fact, a beautifully restored Hartzell, polished to a gleaming shine. It looks about as weaponized as a butter knife. You do that, Karen, I say, turning back to my transponder. Let me know what they say about weaponized propellers. I'm genuinely curious. She huffs, makes a note on her clipboard. Probably subject exhibits defiant curiosity. And then, thankfully, retreats. Chuck shakes his head. Homeland Security? For a beaver? Lady's got a few wires crossed. More than a few, I say. But Patience here is my therapy. Every bolt I tighten is one less urge to, well, you know. We all share a look. Living under the reign of Karen von Rulstein builds a certain camaraderie, a fellowship of the perpetually sighted. Evening descends, the kind of quiet, warm evening that usually makes me appreciate my little corner of the world, despite its HOA-induced headaches. Pops and I are sitting out on the back patio, a rare moment of tranquility. He's nursing a small glass of iced tea, and I've got a beer. He's quieter than usual, though. Been that way for a few days. He's been complaining of some chest pains, off and on, but waves away my concerns with his usual gruff dismissal. Just old age, son. More rust than parts these days. Engine's seen a few too many rough landings. Heard Karen was raising Cain about Patience again today, Pops says, breaking the silence. His voice is a bit gravelly. When is she not? I reply, trying to sound light. Don't worry about it, Pops. Patience is almost ready for her maiden revoyage. I've got all the paperwork filed, flight plan approved for a test run. Thought we could fly up to Miller's Creek next month. Remember that little diner with the killer pie? Do some fishing on the lake? A faint smile touches his lips. That'd be something, Alex. Real something. He takes a slow sip of his tea, then coughs, a dry, racking sound that seems to shake his thin frame. It's a cough I'm hearing more often lately. You sure you're okay, Pops? I ask, keeping my voice casual, but a knot of unease tightens in my stomach. Fit as a fiddle with a few loose strings, he says, but his eyes don't quite meet mine. He stares out at the darkening yard. Just tired, I guess. We sit in silence for another minute. The crickets are starting their nightly chorus. A dog barks in the distance. Normalcy. Then Pops makes a small sound, a little grunt. He shifts in his chair. You know, he says, his voice suddenly thin, that pie at Miller's, it really was. He stops. His hand goes to his chest. His face, already pale in the twilight, seems to drain of all color. He gasps, a sharp, painful intake of air. Pops? I'm on my feet instantly. Alex, he whispers, his eyes wide with a fear I haven't seen in them since I was a kid and crashed my bike into Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning petunias. I think this is a big one. And just like that, the quiet evening shatters. The crickets, the distant dog, the warm air, it all fades. My world narrows to the terrified look on my grandfather's face. Pure, cold panic grips me. Oh God, no, not now. Not like this. My hands are shaking, but my voice, when it comes out, is surprisingly steady. Years of flying, of dealing with unexpected turbulence, I guess. You learn to compartmentalize. Okay, Pops, okay, just breathe. I'm calling 911 right now. I'm already dialing, phone pressed hard against my ear. Pops is slumped in his patio chair, his breathing shallow and ragged. Each gasp sounds like sandpaper. 911, what's your emergency? The operator's voice is calm, professional. A lifeline. My grandfather, I say, rattling off the address. 123 Willow Creek Lane. He's having severe chest pains, difficulty breathing. He's conscious, but it's bad. History of heart trouble. I try to keep the tremor out of my voice, but it's a losing battle. Okay, sir. An ambulance is being dispatched. Help is on the way. Is he awake? Yes, barely. What should I do? Make sure he's comfortable. If he takes any medication for angina, like nitroglycerin, and he's been prescribed it, help him take it. Is the door unlocked? Yeah, I'll meet them at the community gate. Our little slice of suburban paradise has one of those keypad and remote security gates. More for show than actual security, in my opinion, but Karen insisted on it after someone's prize-winning poodle was allegedly spooked by a suspicious squirrel. I hear sirens in the distance, growing louder. Fast. Thank God they're fast. A tiny sliver of relief cuts through the icy fear. They're close, Pops, I say, patting his shoulder. His skin is clammy. Hang on, just hang on. I sprint through the house, grab my gate remote from the kitchen counter, and burst out the front door. The ambulance is just pulling up to the closed gates of Willow Creek Lane, its lights painting frantic red and white strokes across the manicured lawns, and Karen's award-winning, and regulation height, begonias. 2 paramedics, a man and a woman, jump out, all business, medkits in hand. Sir, where is he? The male paramedic asks, his eyes already scanning past me. In the house, back patio, I yell, fumbling with the remote. I'll get the gate. This damn thing can be finicky. And that's when she appears, as if summoned by the very scent of an emergency she can meddle in. Emerging from the deepening shadows like a beige-clad wraith, arms crossed, clipboard somehow already in hand. Karen von Rulstein. Of course, it's always Karen. Hold it right there. Her voice is a drill sergeant's bark, sharp enough to cut glass. It slices through the urgent throb of the ambulance's idling engine. This vehicle, she gestures imperiously at the ambulance, does not have the Willow Creek Residential Emergency Access decal clearly displayed on the front windscreen, as per HOA Bylaw 7, Appendix C, Subsection 2, Paragraph 4. I actually stop, remote halfway to the gate sensor, and stare at her. Is she serious? The paramedics, who had started moving towards the gate, freeze. Karen, I say, my voice dangerously low. Are you insane? This is an ambulance. My grandfather is in there having a heart attack. The male paramedic, a big guy with Miller on his name tag, steps forward. Ma'am, we need to get through. This is a critical medical emergency. Someone's life is at stake. Karen doesn't budge. She actually takes a step towards the gate, as if to physically block it with her own 5'0" frame. Rules are rules, young man. The bylaws are established for everyone's safety, security, and, not insignificantly, the continued aesthetic harmony of our community. What if everyone just let any large, unapproved, decal-deficient vehicle through whenever they pleased? It would be chaos, anarchy, unregulated vehicular ingress. My jaw is actually hanging open. Unregulated vehicular ingress? I echo, stupefied. She squints at the ambulance, her head tilted. Besides, she adds, as if this is a perfectly reasonable secondary concern, that particular shade of red is far too garish for evening hours. It clashes terribly with the twilight taupe of the community signage. It's an ambulance, Karen! I roar, finally losing the battle with my temper. They don't do custom paint jobs to match your damn HOA color palette! The female paramedic, Chen, according to her tag, exchanges a look of pure, unadulterated disbelief with Miller. You ever see anything like this, Mike? She mutters, loud enough for me to hear. Miller shakes his head slowly. 30 years on the job, Sarah. Can't say I have. This is a new one. He turns back to Karen, his voice tight with forced patience. Ma'am, with all due respect, you need to step aside and let us do our job, now. Or I'm calling the police and reporting you for obstruction of emergency medical services. Karen actually puffs out her chest. It's almost comical if Pops weren't dying a few hundred feet away. I am the authority here, Officer Miller. Or rather, Paramedic Miller. And as the duly elected president of the Willow Creek Homeowners Association, I've already contacted the police. She taps her ear, where a Bluetooth earpiece I hadn't noticed before suddenly blinks with a tiny blue light. They are on their way to cite this flagrantly non-compliant vehicle and its operators for attempting to breach community regulations without proper authorization or aesthetic consideration. I can't feel my legs. I think my brain just short-circuited. She's going to kill him. My grandfather is going to die because this woman, this petty tyrant, is having a power trip over a sticker, and the color red. The absurdity of it is a physical blow. I try. God, I try one last time. My voice is hoarse, pleading. Karen, please. For the love of God, please. His life is on the line. Every second you stand here arguing about decals and paint swatches, he's slipping away. We can sort out your precious bylaws later. I'll buy a whole damn roll of your stupid decals. I'll paint the ambulance a subtle sage myself if you'll just let them through. She actually pulls out her phone, not to call off her imaginary police escort. Oh no. She starts filming the paramedics, filming me, her expression one of smug righteousness. For the record, she announces, her voice resonating with the gravity of a news anchor reporting the apocalypse. Documenting the aggressive posturing and decal evasion tactics of emergency personnel and the clear emotional distress of Mr. Henderson, which is no doubt clouding his judgment regarding established community protocols. Paramedic Miller is on his radio, his voice clipped and furious. Dispatch, this is Unit 304. We have an active interference at the scene. A civilian identified as the HOA president is blocking access to the patient, requesting immediate police assistance, priority 1. I repeat, patient is critical, access denied by civilian. Police, that'll take minutes. 5, 10, who knows? Minutes Pops doesn't have. My gaze darts from Karen's smug, recording face to the frustrated, helpless expressions of the paramedics, then towards my house, towards the workshop, towards patients. An idea, wild and born of sheer desperation, explodes in my mind. It's insane. It's probably illegal in 17 different ways. But it's possible. My grandfather, the old bush pilot, always said, "Son, sometimes the straight road is blocked by an immovable object, usually a stubborn mule or a bureaucrat. That's when you gotta find your own patch of sky." Right now, Karen von Ruhlstein is that stubborn mule and that bureaucrat, all rolled into one terrifyingly beige package. It's like a switch flips in my head. The despair, the pleading, it's gone. Replaced by a cold, hard clarity. Pops didn't just teach me about engines and the best fishing spots up Miller's Creek. He was an old bush pilot in Alaska for a spell after the Air Force, flew de Havilland Beavers just like patients into places that didn't have runways, just guts and a prayer. He taught me to fly before I could legally drive, out in the Nevada desert where the rules were a little more suggestive. "The sky's big, Alex," he'd say, his hand steady on the yoke beside mine. "Plenty of room for those who know how to use it, and sometimes the only way out is up." I got my pilot's license the day I turned 16. Flew crop dusters one summer to save for college. Even did a 2-year stint with a volunteer air ambulance service in my early 20s, flying doctors and patients in and out of remote areas. Flew into some tight spots, landed on dirt strips, gravel bars, once even a frozen lake. Nothing like this, though. Not in my own damn driveway with the queen of the HOA filming my every move. "Screw this," I mutter, the words a vow. Karen is still lecturing Paramedic Chen about the correct procedure for emergency vehicle approach angles, occasionally waving her phone camera for emphasis. I turn to Paramedic Miller, my mind already racing, calculating wind direction. Negligible, thank God. Obstacle clearance, Karen's prize-winning petunias are definitely in the path. And the sheer, unadulterated lunacy of what I'm about to propose. "How long?" I ask, my voice sharp, cutting through Karen's monologue. "Realistically, how long until he needs to be at a cardiac unit, with a surgeon ready to go?" Miller looks at me, startled by my change in tone. "Minutes ago. Traffic to County General is a beast this time of night, even with lights and sirens. If we leave right now, best case, 20 minutes. And that's if every light is green and God himself is clearing traffic." He looks grim. "He needs a cath lab, stat. We're losing him, Mr. Henderson." "Okay." I nod once, a short, sharp movement. The decision is made. "New plan. Get him prepped for immediate transport. I'll be the transport." Miller just stares at me. Chen actually stops trying to reason with Karen and turns, her mouth slightly open. "Sir," Miller says slowly, like I've just started speaking in tongues. "Transport him… how?" I jerk my thumb towards my workshop where the tale of patience is just visible. "With that." I don't wait for their bewildered sputtering. I sprint, past Karen, who actually lowers her phone, a flicker of something… confusion? Intrigue? In her eyes. I'm a blur heading for the workshop. Chuck and Barry are standing by the open doors, their faces a mixture of concern and morbid curiosity, having heard most of the escalating drama. "Guys!" I yell as I approach, already reaching for my phone. "Change of plans. Massive change of plans. Pops is critical. Paramedics are stuck at the gate thanks to Queen Karen and her decal dementia. We're flying him out." Chuck's jaw drops. "Flying him, Alex, is patience even. I mean, we haven't done the final FAA shakedown yet." "She's ready enough!" I snap, my voice leaving no room for argument. Adrenaline is a wonderful focusing agent. "She'll fly. Get those workshop doors open as wide as they'll go. Clear that entire side yard. Drag everything out. I need a 50-foot runway, give or take. Now, go, go, go!" Barry, to his credit, doesn't even question it. He just grabs a heavy tool cart and starts hauling it out of the way. 50 feet of what, exactly, Alex? "Of hope, Barry. Of slightly less than ideal takeoff conditions. Just move." Chuck, after a moment of stunned paralysis, grins. A wild, slightly manic grin. "Well, hell, it's not every day you get to launch a beaver from suburbia. You got it, boss." He starts wrestling with a stack of lumber. I'm already dialing, my fingers surprisingly steady. It's a number I haven't called in years, but I know it by heart. Dr. Maria Ramirez, head of emergency medicine at County General. My old mentor from the air ambulance days. Sharp as a tack, cool under pressure, and one of the few people who never told me my ideas were completely insane. Just mostly. "Ramirez," her voice answers, curt and professional. "Maria, it's Alex Henderson, long time no talk. Listen, I've got a critical cardiac patient. It's my grandpa. Ground transport is complicated." Understatement of the century. I'm firing up my stowell. Patience. My beaver. Can you meet me at County General's helipad? Alert the cardiac team, ETA. Let's call it 15 minutes from wheels up, maybe sooner if I don't hit any mailboxes on the way out. There's a stunned silence on the other end. I can picture her pinching the bridge of her nose. Alex, she says finally, her voice carefully neutral. Are you currently experiencing a psychotic episode? Your STOL? You know the protocols for patient transport. You know the FAA regulations regarding unauthorized urban aviation. No time for the fine print, Maria! I cut her off, watching Chuck and Barry frantically creating something resembling a very short, very cluttered runway beside the workshop. He's fading. This is his only shot. Just be ready, please! Another pause. Then, God help you, Alex. 15 minutes. We'll be ready. Don't kill yourself or anyone else. She hangs up. That's as good a green light as I'm going to get. Chuck and Barry are absolute legends. They move with a frantic, synchronized energy I didn't know they possessed. Tool carts vanish. That stack of lumber that's been mocking me for weeks is suddenly gone. My prized, and Karen despised, collection of antique lawn gnomes, all 73 of them, are unceremoniously scooped up and dumped onto the far side of the lawn. Anything and everything that could snag a wingtip or a wheel is being hurled out of the designated runway, which is rapidly becoming a 50-foot stretch of slightly compressed grass, a few bewildered earthworms, and a lingering scent of panic. I'm in the cockpit of Patience, strapped in tight. My hands move with a life of their own, flipping switches, checking gauges, running through the pre-flight checklist at warp speed. Fuel selector on. Magnetos both. Master switch on. Mixture rich. Throttle cracked. The familiar litany, a comforting ritual in the midst of utter chaos. Clear prop, I yell, more out of habit than necessity. The only thing to clear is Karen, and she's hopefully still arguing with the paramedics, or perhaps drafting a new bylaw about unauthorized gnome relocation. I hit the starter. The big radial engine coughs once, twice, then catches with a guttural roar that shakes the very foundations of my suburban tranquility. The propeller spins into a shimmering disk. The sound is magnificent, deafening, and probably violating a dozen noise ordinances Karen hasn't even invented yet. I see paramedic Miller and Chen staring towards the workshop, their argument with Karen apparently forgotten, their expressions utterly dumbfounded. Karen, however, looks like she's just seen the devil himself emerge from my garage riding a flaming Harley. Her mouth is a perfect O of outrage. This is it, I breathe, my heart hammering against my ribs. This is completely, certifiably, off-the-charts insane, but it's for pops. I glance out at my makeshift runway. Chuck is giving me a frantic, grease-stained thumbs up. Barry is holding a garden rake like an air traffic controller's wand, looking utterly terrified, but also strangely exhilarated. Is it clearish? I yell over the glorious racket of the Pratt & Whitney Wasp Jr. engine. Chuck cups his hands around his mouth. Clear as it's gonna get, boss. She ain't gonna be a Heathrow takeoff, but give her hell. Go for launch. Or whatever the hell you call it in this situation. Whatever the hell indeed. Just as I'm about to ease the throttle forward, the night erupts with a fresh chorus of sirens. Louder this time. Closer. 2 squad cars, lights blazing, screech to a halt behind the still idling ambulance. The cops are here, Karen's cavalry. Or so she thinks. They spill out, Officers Smith and Jones, if their name tags are to be believed, looking ready for anything. They see the ambulance, apparently blocked. They see Karen, gesticulating wildly towards the paramedics, then towards me, then towards the sky, as if invoking divine retribution. Then they hear my engine. The deep, throbbing growl of nearly 1,000 horsepower in a space designed for lawn mowers and Little League practice. and through the gap between my house and the Petersons' meticulously pruned acacia tree, they see the propeller of Patience spinning, a silver blur in the flashing emergency lights. Officer Smith, the taller one, puts a hand on his holstered weapon. Not drawing it, just resting it there. Like he's not sure if he needs to issue a parking ticket or call in the National Guard. Karen is screaming now, her voice somehow piercing the engine's roar. "He's got an aeroplane! Officers, arrest him! He's got a rogue aeroplane! It's unlicensed! It's menacing!" Officer Jones, younger, eyes wider than dinner plates, fumbles for his radio. "Dispatch, we have a situation developing at 123 Willow Creek. There appears to be... Subject is attempting to operate an aircraft from a residential backyard?" His voice cracks on backyard. This is where it gets interesting. My plan isn't to take off from the side yard. Not enough room even for a STSOL like Patience. No, my plan is far more elegantly stupid. I need to get Patience to the front of the house, where the paramedics can transfer Pops directly from the stretcher into the modified cargo bay. It's a very, very short, controlled ground effect taxi, maybe with a little hop. But the title of this misadventure, if anyone ever writes it, is 90 seconds later I landed a MedEvac plane. And that 90 seconds, it starts now. From the moment I gunned that beautiful engine to taxi Patience out of the confines of my workshop's apron, to the moment I'd cut the power again, perfectly positioned by the front curb where the ambulance should have been sitting peacefully, its decal proudly displayed. That was my window. 90 seconds, tops. Every one of them etched in adrenaline. I ease the throttle forward. Patience lurches, then rolls, her big Tundra tires bumping over the uneven grass of my runway. The wingtips, I'm acutely aware, are mere inches from Mrs. Peterson's prize-winning azaleas on one side and my own long-suffering fence on the other. This isn't flying. This is aggressive gardening with a very large, very loud implement. The cops are yelling something. Karen is definitely apoplectic. I can see her face, puce with fury, even in the strobing lights. Then, the critical bit. There's a slight incline from my side yard to the front driveway. I give Patience a little more juice. Just a touch. The nose lifts. Not much, maybe 3-4 feet. Enough to clear the slightly raised curb of the driveway, and, more importantly, Karen's award-winning regulation height, twilight taupe, painted decorative border stones that she'd had installed last spring, and billed the HOA for, naturally. For a glorious, terrifying second, Patience is airborne. A suburban stole hop. The cops dive for cover. I think I hear a faint shriek, possibly from Mrs. Henderson 2 doors down, who I know is very protective of her rose bushes. "Sorry, Mrs. Henderson." Then, with a gentleness that belies the sheer insanity of the maneuver, I chop the power, a little rudder, a touch of brake, and Patience's wheels kiss the asphalt of Willow Creek Lane. Right in front of my house. A perfect, if utterly illegal, street landing. The propeller spins down, the engine ticks and pops as it cools. Silence descends. A shocked, ringing silence, broken only by the distant, fading wail of another siren. Probably for me this time, or maybe Karen called in the FAA personally. I swing open the modified extra-wide cargo door I'd installed. It was originally meant for loading bulky antiques I sometimes find at rural auctions. Tonight, it's a gateway to life. "She's all yours, gentlemen!" I roar at the stunned paramedics, who are still standing by their decal-deficient ambulance, looking like they've just witnessed a UFO landing. "Patient transfer! Let's go, go, go!" For a beat, nobody moves. The paramedics, Miller and Chen, just stare. The cops, slowly emerging from behind their squad car, look equally poleaxed. Karen Karen looks like her brain has finally blue-screened. Then Miller blinks, shakes his head as if to clear it, and galvanizes into action. "Sarah, let's move! Stretcher, now!" They rush Pops out of the house, his face terrifyingly gray. But he's still breathing. They maneuver the stretcher with practiced efficiency, a stark contrast to the surrounding chaos. They load him into the spacious cargo bay of Patience. It's a snug fit, but it works. Just as I designed it to, though I never imagined this particular use case. Karen, meanwhile, reboots, and her operating system is pure, undiluted rage. "Unsanitary!" she screeches, finally finding her voice, which is several octaves higher than usual. "Unregulated air ambulance. His oil is dripping on the community-approved aggregate sealant. My God, the property values, the sheer, unmitigated audacity." Officer Smith, the taller cop, approaches me cautiously as I'm helping Miller secure the stretcher inside Patience. Officer Jones is still muttering into his radio, probably requesting backup, a priest, and a good therapist. "Sir," Officer Smith begins, then seems to run out of words. He just gestures vaguely at Patience, then at me, then at the sky. "Sir, I don't even know where to begin. License and registration for the, aircraft, please." "In a minute, officer," I say, my voice tight but steady. "The paramedic, Chen, has decided to come with me." "Smart. Pops needs continuous monitoring." "Saving a life here. You can write me a ticket for illegal parking of an aircraft later. Maybe a commendation for creative problem-solving? No? Okay, just the ticket then." I try a weak grin. It probably looks like a grimace. Officer Jones wanders over, eyes still wide. "Dispatch wants to know if you have a flight plan filed for this, departure, sir." "Filed it in my head about 3 minutes ago," I say. "Destination, County General. Purpose, not dying today." Chen gives me a thumbs up from inside. Patience. "Ready when you are, Captain." Captain, I like the sound of that. "Clear!" I yell, jumping back into the cockpit. This time the cops actually step back, quickly. With another mighty roar from the Wasp Jr., I ease the throttle forward. Patience rolls down Willow Creek Lane. Luckily, it's a cul-de-sac. My house is near the end. I make the turn at the bulb, using nearly every inch of asphalt. Then, facing the relatively clear stretch of road leading out of our little enclave, I push the throttle to the firewall. Patience leaps forward, eats up the asphalt, and with a breathtakingly short run, we are airborne. Climbing steeply, banking gently over the bewildered neighborhood, leaving behind a very confused HOA, 2 stunned police officers, and 1 apoplectic Karen von Rulstein, who I'm pretty sure is now attempting to cite the birds for flying in a non-designated avian corridor. We're airborne. Pops is in the back, Chen attending to him, her face a mask of professional calm, despite the absurdity of her current mode of transport. Patience is handling like a dream, climbing smoothly through the cool night air. Below us, the lights of the city sprawl out like a scattered handful of diamonds. It's beautiful and terrifying. "You do this often?" Chen yells over the engine noise, her eyes flicking from Pops's vitals monitor to me. "Fly this plane," I yell back. "All the time. Landed on a suburban street while being screamed at by an HOA president and evading local law enforcement? First time for everything, I guess." She actually laughs. A short, sharp bark of surprised amusement. "Well, you're good at it. Miller's never gonna believe this. Or live it down. Blocked by a decal violation." I see my phone, mounted on the dash, light up with a barrage of calls. Unknown numbers. Probably Karen, giving my number to the FAA, the NTSB, the UN Security Council, and anyone else who'll listen. I ignore it. Right now, only one thing matters: County General's helipad is in sight, a brightly lit circle in the urban darkness. Dr. Ramirez is probably down there, pacing, wondering if I'm going to land a flaming wreck, or worse, not show up at all. "Almost there, Pops," I whisper, even though he can't hear me. "Hang on, you stubborn old coot. Hang on." The relief when the wheels, or rather, the helipad skids as I'm aiming for their designated emergency spot, make contact is a physical wave that washes over me, leaving me shaky but upright. Adrenaline is a hell of a drug, but the come-down is a beast. Hours later, Pops is in surgery. Critical, but stable. Dr. Ramirez intercepted us on the helipad, her face a mixture of fury and grudging admiration. "Henderson, you magnificent, insane bastard," she'd said, shaking her head as the cardiac team swarmed Pops. "You actually did it. Now get that museum piece out of my landing zone before someone from administration has a conniption." I'd flown patients to a small local airfield, legally this time, after a very confusing phone call to air traffic control. Now I'm back home. Or rather, standing in my driveway, which is currently cordoned off with police tape that looks suspiciously like Karen's emergency stash of bylaw infraction demarcation ribbon. Officers Smith and Jones are waiting for me. They look tired. And like they've spent the last few hours writing the weirdest incident report of their careers. Chuck and Barry are there too, leaning against Chuck's truck, looking like proud, slightly terrified accomplices who are already planning to dine out on this story for years. "Mr. Henderson!" Officer Smith's voice is flat. He's holding a notepad, a very full notepad. "We need to talk about a considerable number of things, starting with multiple potential FAA violations, several municipal code violations, including, but not limited to, unpermitted operation of an aircraft within city limits, reckless endangerment, though, frankly, your landing was surprisingly neat, and one very, very agitated HOA president who claims you've single-handedly destabilized the local avian ecosystem with unauthorized aviation fuel emissions, and I quote, excessive propeller-related wind shear." I rub my eyes. "Officer, with all due respect, my grandfather was dying. That woman," I jerk my head towards Karen's darkened house, "blocked the ambulance, over a decal, and the color of the paint. What would you have done if it was your dad, your grandpa, lying there gasping for breath?" I let the question hang in the air. Chuck clears his throat and steps forward, Barry beside him. "He's telling you the God's honest truth, officers. We saw the whole thing. That Karen lady, she's a piece of work. She was going to let that old man die over some stupid rule." Barry nods vigorously. "Yeah, and that landing? Nicest bit of flying I ever did see. Like something out of a movie. A really weird, low-budget movie, but still." Officer Smith looks at Officer Jones. Jones just shrugs, a tiny smile playing on his lips. Smith sighs, a long, weary sound. "The FAA will be in touch, Mr. Henderson. So will the city. Probably the county, too. And I imagine your insurance company will have a few questions." He pauses. "But for what it's worth, that was unorthodox, but damn effective." He actually almost smiles. Now about that propeller-related wind shear. The next day is surprisingly quiet. I'm expecting a full-scale HOA assault, a barrage of registered letters, maybe Karen picketing my driveway with a sign demanding, "No fly zone over my begonias." But there's nothing. Silence from the Von Rulstein Command Center. Around noon, Mrs. Henderson from 2 doors down, the one whose prize-winning roses I nearly gave an unsolicited aerial pruning, shuffles over to my porch. She's carrying a pie. Apple, by the smell of it. "Alex, dear," she says, her voice a little shaky but kind. "That was a very brave thing you did yesterday, for your grandfather." She peers at Patience, which is now parked, mostly discreetly beside the workshop, covered with a large, hastily acquired tarp. My Herbert had a scare like that last year. Seconds count. They really do. She lowers her voice. As for Karen, well, I believe there's a petition circulating. Several, in fact. Seems a few other residents had decal-related delays, with delivery trucks and repairmen. Old Man Hemlock down the street said she tried to cite a pizza delivery boy for excessive topping distribution velocity. I blink. Excessive topping distribution velocity? Mrs. Henderson nods solemnly. He apparently handed over the pizza too quickly, startled her. She sighs. Some people just have too much time on their hands, dear. Anyway, this pie is for you. And tell your pops we're all praying for him. Karen's curtains remain drawn all day. Rumor has it, from young Timmy Peterson, who delivers her newspaper, from a regulation distance, no doubt, that she's been on the phone non-stop, her voice escalating in pitch, using words like aerodynamic trespass and psychological distress due to unapproved low-altitude maneuvers. Maybe, just maybe, the reign of terror is cracking. A week later, Pops is home, grumbling about hospital food and already asking when we can take Patience up to Miller's Creek for that fishing trip. He's got a few new scars, a pacemaker, and a story that'll make his Air Force buddies green with envy. The doctors said if he'd arrived 10 minutes later, well, he wouldn't have. The FAA sent me a very stern, very official letter detailing approximately 37 ways I'd violated federal aviation regulations. It was accompanied by a much smaller, handwritten note on unofficial letterhead from someone in the regional office that just said, "Nice landing. Don't do it again. But if you do, get video." The city fined me for unpermitted street use by an aircraft. I framed the ticket. The local news ran a story. Local handyman's hasty flight saves grandfather in daring backyard rescue. They called me a handyman, and they conveniently downplayed the numerous illegalities, focusing more on the human interest and the maverick spirit. My 15 minutes of local fame. Chuck and Barry are minor celebrities at the local hardware store. They're now offering HOA-proof installations and emergency aerial extraction consultation, rates negotiable. Business, they tell me, is booming. And Karen von Rulstein? She put her house up for sale 3 days ago. The online listing is a masterpiece of passive-aggressive understatement. Charming suburban home in meticulously regulated community. Seeking new owners who appreciate tranquility, adherence to clearly defined aesthetic standards, and minimal aerial activity. Recent isolated incident notwithstanding. I'm out by the workshop, polishing a spot on Patience's cowling. Pops is sitting in his old lawn chair, bundled in a blanket despite the warm afternoon, watching me with a proud glint in his eye. "Well, Pops," I say, leaning against the wing. "Guess we showed him. Sometimes you just gotta make your own runway." He chuckles, a weak but genuine sound. "Always told you, son. Sky's the limit. If you've got the guts and the horsepower." I spot a new envelope stuck to my front door, official looking, HOA letterhead. My heart sinks a little. Here we go again. I walk over, pull it off. It's from the acting HOA president, Mrs. Henderson. It's a commendation for exceptional community spirit and resourcefulness in a crisis. Tucked inside is a new decal for Patience. It's a picture of a beaver, winking with the words, "Willow Creek Air Superiority Approved." Some things, it turns out, do change. Sometimes even for the better. I look up at the clear blue sky, a grin spreading across my face. Yeah, the sky's the limit.